Good. Well, my name is Sloan, and I am from the Grout Museum District in Waterloo. Has anybody been to the Grout before? Maybe the Imaginarium in Waterloo? Okay, a few of you. Well, that's where I am. And so today I brought some animals that live with us at the Imaginarium. So I have 5 different animal friends that I help take care of every day. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. And I'm going to start off with some of my smaller critters, and then I'm going to move over to a larger one at the end. All right, and I know that there's a lot of you in here. If you want to pet any of the animals or see them up close after the show, you can certainly come up. I'm happy to let you. After the show, if you want to come up and form a line, then we can do that as well. But I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'm really excited because I'm originally from Iowa City, so this is super cool for me. I was coming to the library as a kid, and so it's really awesome to be back here and providing a program. And this guy is one of my absolute favorite animals that I care for, and I love all of them, but this one is a personal favorite. This is our bearded dragon named Pablo. Can we say hi to Pablo? Hi, Pablo. Now, Pablo comes with me on a lot of different outreach trips. He loves to meet new people. And Pablo is a lizard, so he's a reptile, and that means he is cold-blooded. Does anybody know what cold-blooded means? Yeah.
It means they can't generate their own body heat, and they need to get heat from the sun. But at zoos, most of the time, they use heat lamps.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're cold-blooded, you don't generate your own body heat. So you rely on your environment to help heat you up. And as humans, we're actually warm-blooded. So we generate our own body heat. If we're a little chilly, we're able to kind of warm ourselves up. But Pablo isn't able to do that because he's a reptile. So at his enclosure back at the Imaginarium, we have a heater. We usually keep it pretty humid for him as well. He always feels pretty good, and you can tell by his coloring also if he's feeling warm enough. Pablo or any other bearded dragon is able to change their color for 2 different reasons. One is if they're too cold, so their temperature will tell you whether or not they're feeling comfortable. Right now, he's kind of this sandy color, and that means that he's feeling comfortable, he's warm, he's not feeling anxious or scared at all. But if he were feeling a little bit colder, he would start to turn a little bit dark brown. He would get a little bit splotchy. And so that tells us at the Imaginarium if he's too cold or if we need to adjust the temperature in his enclosure. And I'm always mindful of that too when we take him on trips, especially this time of year. It tends to be a little bit chillier outside. So if he's a little bit colder, we'll make sure to kind of bundle him up and make sure that we get him in a warm space as soon as possible. Do you have a question about Pablo?
What color does he turn when he gets too hot?
Well, if he's warm, he is going to still stay this really sandy color, and he is actually native to a really warm place. Does anybody have an idea of where bearded dragons are from? Yeah. Mm-hmm. The desert? Well, you are pretty right. He is in like a deserty region, but I'm looking for a specific country. You are very close. Yeah. He is cold-blooded. Do you? He is, yes. Bearded dragons are all from Australia. If you find them in the U.S., they're actually bred to be pets, but they are native to Australia. And in Australia, it's very hot, it's very sunny, and it can be a little bit more humid. So we try to keep his enclosure the same. So we try to make sure that he's warm enough. But, like I said, he can change color for temperature. He can also change color for another reason, and that's if he feels threatened or maybe a little scared or anxious. He will actually turn a really dark color, and that lets predators and other people know, hey, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable right now, so I'm going to change my color, and I'm going to show you that I am not feeling okay. So if he feels scared, like if he were wild and a predator was near him, he would turn black. And all of these little spikes along his body would kind of puff out and stiffen up. He wants to crawl on my shoulder. That's usually what he does. Yeah, so he will puff out his spikes. He'll turn black. And that kind of lets predators and everybody else know, hey, you need to back up from me. I'm feeling a little uncomfortable right now. Because he wants to make himself look larger. So if he's feeling threatened, he's going to puff himself out and make sure that everybody knows that he's looking very tough. Now Pablo is sitting on my shoulder. We are actually very close. Usually when I'm at my desk back at the Imaginarium, I'll have Pablo there with me, and he really likes to sit on my shoulder and fall asleep. So sometimes when I take him on programs, he likes to sit here and snuggle. He's very snuggly. Now, what do you think Pablo eats? Does anybody have an idea of what Pablo may eat? Yeah. Crickets, yes. So Pablo likes to eat small insects, so his main diet consists of crickets, but we also feed him some other things. Do you think you know? Leaves, yes. So Pablo likes to eat leafy greens, so we'll give him spinach or kale as a supplement to his cricket diet. We also feed him some other things. Does anybody else have a guess? Yeah. Not necessarily fruits. Sometimes we will give him little like berries, maybe to see if he'll eat them, but we give him minimal fruit. Similar to crickets, we feed him some other things too.
Gnats.
Not gnats, but that's a really good guess.
Grubs?
Yeah, so grubs, mealworms. He likes to eat really small worms, so a little bit smaller than crickets. Occasionally, we'll give him beetles, potentially grasshoppers. He's eaten cockroaches before. So his diet consists of a lot of insects that are very different from our diet. All right, does anybody have questions about Pablo? Yeah. He is actually very fast, and that's a great question. So, like I said, he's native to Australia. He is going to be found in the forested area, so he's going to be climbing trees, and they are very fast. If I let him go on the floor, I would have to chase after him because he is super speedy. So I usually try to hold him up here, but yes, he is very fast, and that allows him to kind of chase after some of those really fast insects that he likes to eat. So he can chase after those crickets or those grasshoppers or other things as well. Do you have a question? It is a lizard, yes. So, this is a bearded dragon. So he is a type of lizard. I'm going to turn you around. I know you don't like it. Yeah, so he is a lizard. He's part of the lizard family. Now, how do you think he gets his name, bearded dragon? Do you think you know?
I say he looks like a dragon with a beard.
Well, he does, yeah. So he looks kind of like that stereotypical dragon. So if you've read fairy tales or seen pictures of kind of cartoon dragons, he does bear a resemblance to that. But also, he has these spikes along his face, and they puff out, and they kind of just sit still if he's feeling comfortable, but they look almost like he has a beard. So they call him a bearded dragon for those reasons. Now, you will see, when I bring him around, you might see that he has this really long tail. One cool thing is that he is actually able to detach from his tail if he needs to. So let's say that he was out in the wild and a predator came up and got a hold of his tail. He would actually be able to detach his tail from his body and get away, which is pretty cool. He's obviously never done that, but he would. And you'll also notice that his hands and his feet look very different. He's got these unusually long toes. And he also has very long nails, and that's going to help him when he climbs trees. So in Australia, he would be found in those forested regions. When he climbs, he's able to spread out those super long toes and get a really good grip, and then his nails will allow him to dig in as well. So he's going to be able to be an excellent climber with those toes and nails. Yes. How old is he? That's a great question. You know, Pablo is only 2 years old. He just actually got to be about full-grown size. Usually they grow between 1.5 to 2 feet, so he is full-grown right now, but he's 2 years old. We like to say that he kind of just grew out of his teenager stage, so he is just now becoming his adult self. Yeah.
How old are they for when they're an adult? Or
You know what? We just kind of call them an adult when they're full grown. So up until that point, they're still kind of growing into that. But he's full grown at this point, so we'll go ahead and say that he's an adult for now. All right. So this is my first animal. Oh, I will take one more question. You know what? That is a great question. I believe that they are able, but it is a very slow process. So for a while, if that ever did happen, which hopefully it wouldn't, I believe that they would be able to regenerate their tail, but it would take a really long time to grow a tail this long, right? So there would be a period of time where he would not have his own tail. All right. Yes?
Can you hold him at the end?
If you come up, I can't let you hold him because you're all new friends and he doesn't know you as well, but you can pet him when you come up at the end. All right. Yes?
How long do they live?
They can live up to about 20 to 25 years. So they can live a really long time. When people get them, they're usually really small in pet stores, and a lot of people think that they're going to stay that small, but they are going to grow to be about 2 feet long, and they'll live a very long life. So if you're thinking about getting them for a pet, they are awesome pets. We absolutely love Pablo, but just know that you will have this member of your family for a pretty. Want to say goodbye to Pablo? I know. All right. All right, so this is my second animal, and this is another favorite. This is a very sweet animal that we have. This is our Russian tortoise, and his name is Little Bit. Do you want to say hello to Little Bit? Now, Little Bit also lives at the Imaginarium, and he actually shares an enclosure with his best friend, Helga. So we have 2 Russian tortoises, and they do everything together. They like to snuggle together. They share the same food. So they both share a really large enclosure back at the Imaginarium. Now, Little Bit is actually a tortoise. Does anybody know the difference between a turtle and a tortoise? I get asked this a lot. Yeah.
A turtle is smaller, but it moves faster, and a tortoise is bigger, but it moves slower.
That is a very good guess. You know, they could actually move at similar speeds and be similar sizes, but that is a great guess. Does anybody have an idea? Yeah.
Usually with tortoises, you can tell with their legs, because usually turtles, their legs are much more bigger than those.
Well, you are almost exactly correct. So their legs are the biggest tell for the difference between a turtle and a tortoise. So tortoises are actually land-based, so their feet are actually going to be a little bit stumpier, they're going to be shorter, and that's going to allow them to dig around and really take hold of that land a little bit better. But if you have a turtle, they're going to be water-based, so they're going to have almost flippers that's going to allow them to swim a little bit better. So you can really tell the difference in their feet and in their legs. Do you have a question?
No, I have another answer.
You do? What's your answer?
Tortoises are mostly on land, and turtles are mostly in the water.
That's exactly right. Tortoises are mostly on land and turtles are mostly in the water. Now, what do you think that this friend eats? Do you think it has the same diet as Pablo?
No.
No. So what do you think this friend eats? Yeah. Lettuce, you are exactly right. This friend loves leafy greens, so we'll feed it lettuce, we'll feed it kale, we'll feed it spinach. It loves to eat a lot of leafy greens. So we make sure that it gets a lot of leafy greens so it gets that nutrients.
Maybe grass?
Yep, it would also maybe eat grass as well. What else do you think?
It will eat,
Do you want me to come back to you?
Yeah.
Okay. What else do you think it eats? Yes. So as much as they love their leafy greens, these tortoises absolutely love fruit. They love clementines, are one of their favorites. Raspberries are probably their absolute favorite. They will eat a whole carton of raspberries if you let them, which we try not to because that's a lot of sugar. They love bananas. They can put away a banana like you would not believe. So they love to make sure that they get more leafy greens than fruit, just like us, than we do fruits. Now, one really cool thing about tortoises that a lot of people ask me is that they actually don't leave their shell. Their shell is going to grow with them, so when they come out of their tortoise egg, when they're first hatched, they're going to have their shell, and that shell is going to grow with them. Now, what's cool is that they'll actually shed off parts of their shell as they grow, kind of like we grow out of our skin. So we shed our skin cells, we'll kind of shed our clothing, but they'll shed off a lot of their shell as it grows, and it's actually fused to their body. So right now when I'm scratching him, he can actually feel that, and a lot of our tortoises actually really love it for us to take them out and give them back scratches because they can feel that. So this shell is fused to their body inside. Now, their shell also plays a very important role. If you've ever seen turtles maybe get scared, they'll kind of sink back into their shell. This shell is really hard, so it's going to protect their body and protect their head and their limbs. So if they ever felt threatened, like something was going to come after them, they're going to kind of slink back into their shell, and that shell is going to be hard enough to protect them from a potential predator. So this is part of their defense mechanism. Yeah?
I think they walk on land and a few times go on water.
Yeah, well, this turtle mostly is on land. Sometimes it'll kind of be in its water dish, but mostly on land. But that's a very good observation. Yeah?
I have another answer for the difference between turtles and tortoises. Turtles can go in their shell, tortoises can't.
Yeah, well, tortoises can still kind of slink back. Turtles will fit a little bit better into their shell.
They'll go like in like kinda like not that good as turtles.
They kind of go in, yeah. So maybe it doesn't look like it's as good as a turtle, but yeah, they can slink back into their shell. All right. Do you have any particular questions about tortoises or my friend right here? Yeah. How big do they get? Well, this Russian tortoise is as big as they're going to get, so this one is full grown. But I will say that different species of tortoises actually grow to be different sizes. So back at the Imaginarium, we actually have a tortoise that is, I would say, about 3 or 4 times the size of this tortoise. They're very large. It's a cherryfoot tortoise, so depending on the species you have, they're going to grow to be a different size. I will take one more question, then we'll move on to another animal. Yeah, that's a great question. You know, a lot of our animals were either rescued, so maybe somebody found them abandoned, or we have a lot of animals that are donated to us, and maybe they were pets before for a family that we're no longer able to care for them. So we've taken in a lot of reptiles, and we care for them. Some are not able to be out in nature anymore for various reasons, so we care for them because maybe they're not able to be out in the wild. But that's a great question that you had. All right, I am going to put a little bit back. He's trying to walk away, but he can't. So can we say goodbye to Little Bit? All right. Okay. Now at the Imaginarium, we have a lot of reptiles, but I will say that our biggest collection are snakes. So I've brought some snake friends here. Now, I do want to say before I bring out our snake friends, sometimes when I bring snakes along with me, some people feel a little scared or anxious. I want you to know that I would never bring an animal that was going to be unsafe or potentially harm you. So all of my snakes here are super friendly. They love to go on trips, and they're really excited to be here. And I'm going to start off with one of my smaller snakes and move on to my largest one.
Is that a python?
We'll find out. Okay, so this is my first snake friend, and this is one of my personal favorite snakes. This is Sherbert, and she is our corn snake. Can we say hello to Sherbert? Now you'll notice, if you've seen a corn snake before, Sherbert looks a little bit different. She's got some red eyes, and her colors are very pale in comparison to some regular corn snakes, and that's because Sherbert is actually albino. And that means that her scales don't have a lot of pigment, so her eyes are red. If she were not albino, she wouldn't be this kind of pale pink or pale orange color. She would actually have almost like a chocolate brown color, maybe some orange red color in there as well. So she is definitely a lot paler than what she would be if she weren't albino. Snake can actually grow 4 to 6 feet in length. So right now she is full grown. She's about between 5 and 6 feet right now. But where do you think you would find this snake? Yeah. Okay, that is one of the reasons why they are named a corn snake. So they are found near cornfields. We don't necessarily find them in Iowa all the time, but you would find them in the southeastern part of the United States, so near Georgia, that southern part of the United States. But a lot of people, when they first saw corn snakes, noticed that they were near grain bins or near cornfields, and that's because they weren't eating the grain, they were actually hunting mice, which do eat grain. So people call them corn snakes because you would typically find them near fields. But there's another reason that they get their name to be a corn snake, and it has to do with their underbelly. Now underneath, it almost looks like a checkered pattern, and when I bring it around, you might be able to see this. This kind of looks like something called Indian corn. Has anybody ever seen Indian corn before? It's kind of multicolored and checkered. Yeah, so people who also saw this snake, notice not only were they near cornfields or grain bins, they were actually kind of resembling Indian corn. So that's part of the reason that they get their name. Now, what do you think this snake friend eats? I kind of mentioned it before. Mice, yes. Now what's cool about snakes is you can kind of guess what they're going to eat based on their body size. A snake is not going to take in something that's larger than what it can handle. And so when you're looking at a snake, if you look at the middle part of its body, that's going to be the widest part. And a snake is only going to take in food that's about that size. So for example, if I were a snake, the widest part of my body is going to be in this midsection. I would take in like a melon if I were a snake. But this snake is only wide enough to take in about a mouse. So you can tell by looking at snakes, typically the size of the food that they're going to eat. But this snake does eat mice. We feed it a mouse every 1 to 2 weeks. So it gets its mouse usually on Friday, so it has a happy weekend of digesting that mouse. Do you have a question? Yeah. This snake friend can actually be pretty fast. Some snakes can be slower than others, and it kind of depends on their size a little bit, but this snake friend would be fast, so that's why I want to hold on to it. I don't want to let it slither away. Now you will notice that it's kind of wrapped around my hand, and that's because, like Pablo, this is a cold-blooded reptile, and since it's not in its heated enclosure, my hands feel really warm, so she's kind of snuggling up to me right now. She says, "Oh, you feel so nice." Yeah. That is an absolutely great question. We actually feed all of our snakes at the Imaginarium frozen mice, and that's because it's safer for the animals. So a lot of people will want to feed their snakes live mice, but let's say that you put your snake in there with a rambunctious mouse. That may potentially hurt your snake, so maybe they have sharp claws, maybe they try to bite your snake, and we don't want that for any of our snake friends. So we feed them already frozen, thawed out mice. Now this snake friend is not venomous. I get asked a lot if snakes are venomous. We only have one venomous snake at the Imaginarium. Everybody else is called a constrictor, and that means that instead of injecting their prey with venom, they wrap around their prey and they give it a really tight squeeze. And I like to say that the snakes actually kill their prey with kindness because they give it too tight of a hug. Do you have a question? Does it eat leaves? No, actually, that's a great question. All snakes are carnivores. They're not going to be leaf eaters, so they're only going to eat meat. So some of our larger snakes, instead of eating mice, maybe they'll eat a larger size of meat. Yeah?
I know why the name called Sherbet is why her name is called Sherbet, because she's so pale, and Sherbet has a pink color.
Exactly, yep. We call this friend sherbet because it kind of looks like orange sherbet a little bit. Yeah, do you have a question?
So some snakes, if they eat like a mouse, it could last them like a week. Or smaller snakes, it could last them like a month.
That's exactly right. So if you were ever looking into having a snake as a pet, they are pretty low maintenance eaters. And like I said before, we only feed our snakes every 1 to 2 weeks, and they'll get about 1 mouse per time. And that's because snakes have a really slow metabolism. So when they take in a whole mouse, it's going to take them a really long time to actually digest their food. But also, they eat a little bit differently than we do. So when we eat meat, we'll actually cut off the muscular part of the meat. We're not typically going to eat the bones or the hair or the skin. Occasionally we will. But when a snake takes in an entire mouse, they're taking in that entire animal. So they're eating the bones, the hair, the organs, the meat. And in that, there's a lot of nutrients. So they're getting a lot of vitamins when they take that in. So that, coupled with having a slow metabolism, they are actually only really able to eat every 1 to 2 weeks, and that's perfectly fine. And if they needed to, they could go longer. We don't like to wait that long. We treat our animals very well, but if they needed to, they could go a little bit longer. Yeah?
What's the furthest snake at Vancouver?
That is a very good question. Our only venomous snake, his name is Orson. He's a western hognose, and he is only about this long, and he's very, very thin. He can't even eat regular-sized mice. We have to get him super tiny mice, which we call hoppers, because he is very small and very cute. And even though he's venomous, he does not look intimidating at all. He's a very tiny snake. Yeah?
How long can a snake get?
How long can a snake get? Well, every snake, depending on the species that you have, is going to be a different length. This snake is about 4 to 6 feet in length. Right now, this one is closer to 6 feet, but they could be 4 to 6 feet. Yeah.
Before you feed the snake the mice, you should kill it. So it doesn't try to tackle the snake or bite.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want our snakes to get hurt during their feedings.
So you should kill it before giving it to that snake.
That's exactly right. Do you have a question?
How do you kill it?
We actually get our food for our snakes. They're already dead when we get them, so they're already okay. Do you have a question? That's okay. If you think of it, let me know. All right, I have 2 more animal friends, and then I want to give you time at the end to potentially come up and pet the animals. So I am going to actually put Sherbert back and take out my next animal. Can we say goodbye to Sherbert? All right. Hi, Monty. All right. So, this is our friend. This is a ball python, and his name is Monty. Can we say hello to Monty the python? Now, you can see that even though this is another snake friend from the Imaginarium, this one is a lot thicker. So, do you think this friend still eats mice? No. What do you think it eats? Rats, yes. So this friend is a little bit thicker. Like I said, they're going to want to take in something that's about as wide as they are so they have enough food. And this friend graduated from mice. He grew big enough, so he is actually eating rat friends, a little bit bigger. But this is a ball python. Why do you think by looking at this python friend, it's called a ball python?
Oh.
Yeah.
Maybe because of the design.
What?
Maybe because of the design or...
That's a very good guess. It's not because of the design.
Because on the bottom it looks like they're bald because on the bottom it looks like they're bald.
Well, not because they're bald. I'll take one more, yes.
Because I think it's able to like make itself look like it's into a ball or something.
Yeah, so if it's in a new environment or feels a little anxious, it's actually going to kind of curl up into a ball shape. So people will call these ball pythons, but actually they are from sub-Saharan Africa and they have quite the history. So people back in the day, a long time ago, actually used to keep ball pythons for pets, and they would wear them around their necks like jewelry because they would ball up around their neck. And so people would walk around wearing live ball pythons, and that was considered to be very beautiful. So people would care for them just like pets. So could you imagine walking around with a snake around your neck all day? Probably not, right? Now this python friend is a little bit different than our corn snake. It has some different facial features. So above its mouth, it's got these pits, and they're actually infrared sensors. So they can sense heat throughout the room through those pits, which is very cool. And snakes in general have different senses than humans. So for example, we have ears that allow us to hear, but every snake is deaf, so they are actually not able to hear anything. So instead, they rely on their sense of smell, and they rely on feeling vibrations on the ground to know when prey are coming near or when something is happening, but they're not able to hear. And you can see that this snake friend is sticking out its tongue. What do you think it's doing when it sticks out its tongue?
It's like tasting and
It's smelling, yeah. So every snake has an organ on the roof of their mouth, and it's called a Jacobson organ. Can we say that? Jacobson. Yeah, and that allows them to smell with their tongue. So it's kind of like they're able to stick out their tongue and taste the air molecules, and that's how they're able to smell. So that's how they're able to smell instead of with their nose. Now you will notice up close, a snake still has nose holes, but they don't use that for smelling. They're going to use that to actually just breathe in. Now snakes also do not have eyelids like we do. That's another thing that's a little bit different about them. They actually have a clear scale that goes over their eye, and we call that a brill. So when they shed, you're actually going to notice that the eyelid is going to start to become a little bit cloudy. And right now Monty's eyelids are a little cloudy. So I know that in the next week or so it's going to start shedding. And it'll shed that scale over its eyelid along with the rest of the scales on its body. And then it'll generate a new scale along with the new ones underneath, which is really cool. Yeah.
so does it actually taste the smell when they taste the smell?
It's kind of like that. It's kind of like they're able to stick out their tongue and smell, so it's kind of like they can taste the air and smell through that way.
So they can like taste what they smell?
In a way, yeah. That's the best way to describe it.
And I think how they scare people away, you stick their tongue out and make like a mean face to scare the predators off that try to eat them.
Well, maybe. They might stick out their tongue a little bit, but they might try to slither away, or they might try to hiss at predators to make them seem a little bit more intimidating. Do you have a question? Yeah, so every snake has teeth. This friend does not have large teeth like a venomous snake would, but it does have teeth. Their food, they're going to open up their mouth as tall as they can wide. And a lot of people think that snakes actually unhinge their jaws, but really what's going on is that their face is kind of made with flexible ligaments. They're able to open up their face, and they take in their mouse or their rat all at once. And they have teeth in the back of their mouth along their neck, and it kind of walks that mouse down. So they're able to kind of chew that up, but in the front of their mouth, they really don't have large teeth. All right, do we have any more questions? Otherwise, I have one more friend. Yes. Where does it poop? So at the base of the tail, there's a small hole, and that's where they go to the bathroom. But that's an okay question. All right, do you have a question? How long can this one grow up to? You know what, this ball pythons will live about 25 years, but the longest ball python on record lived about 47 years. So they can live a really long time depending on their care and their environment. All right, I'm going to put Monty back, and I'm going to get my last friend. So can we say goodbye to Monty? All right, Monty. Hi. I know. All right.
Wait, that's a leopard.
Okay. Hi.
This is a hare.
Well, hello. So this is our Burmese Python. She is one of 3 Burmese Pythons that we have back at the Imaginarium, and this is Aphrodite. Can we say hello to Aphrodite? Hello. Now, Aphrodite is obviously a very large snake. Burmese Pythons are actually one of the 5 largest snakes in the world. They can grow to be about 20 feet long and over 200 pounds. So this is a very large snake. Like I said, we have 3 of them. The largest Burmese python that we have back at the Imaginarium is actually so heavy and large that I'm not able to lift them by myself. It's a 2-person job. So that's why I bring Aphrodite along with me, because she's a size that I'm actually able to carry safely. Now, do you think that this friend eats rats or mice? No. No. What do you think this friend eats? Not rabbits, but you're close. Do you think you know? Not birds, but that's another good guess. Yeah. What? That's okay. So this friend actually eats guinea pigs, and I know they're very cute, but that is the size of food that this one will eat. Now I will say that the largest Burmese python that we have back at the Imaginarium, the one that I'm not able to carry, that friend is so large that it does not eat guinea pigs. That friend actually eats rabbits, specifically 5-pound rabbits. So that is a very, very large snake. But this friend eats guinea pigs, and actually this friend is growing larger all the time. Since I started, this friend has grown quite large, and this one I would be pretty certain will be on rabbits by the end of the year. Now, where do you think that Burmese pythons are from? Does anybody have an idea? Where do you think they're from?
Burmese.
Not Burma. Where do you think they're from?
Burmese.
Do you think you know?
Burmese.
No, not there. Do you think you know where they're from? You are absolutely right. Burmese pythons are invasive in Florida, and that's because they like very hot and humid climates. And they're actually native to tropic and subtropic regions of Asia. But they are invasive in Florida because that climate also works very well for them. All right, just like Monty, this friend also has pits above its mouth. So it can also sense infrared heat. But this friend is also like our corn snake. Now you'll notice that these colors are yellow and white. All of the Burmese pythons that we have at the Imaginarium are actually albino. So this friend is a lot more pale. You can see that it's very, very brightly colored. And it's really good that it's at the Imaginarium for that reason, because if this friend was out in the wild, it would be very easy for a predator to spot. So it's really good that it's with us. Well, if the predator's a little bit larger, it might not be able to. Now, this friend does squeeze. This is also a constrictor, so it's not a venomous snake. So just like our other two snake friends, this one will wrap around its prey, and it'll give it a really tight squeeze, and that's how it's able to get its food. Yeah? What was that? Does it change colors? No, it actually does not. This friend will always be this color. All right. Do we have any other final questions? Yeah. That is a very good question. This friend, I am actually not sure how old this friend is. We've had this one for quite a while, and I believe that it was donated to us before that. So I'm actually not sure on the age, but they can live pretty long lives. They can live between 20 and 30 years, which is a pretty long life for a snake. Do you have any other questions? Yeah. Oh, is that part of a shed? So the container, which we use to transport our Burmese pythons, does still have some remnants of shed if we've transported them before, if they've been shedding, but this friend is not currently shedding. Do you have a question? How much does this one weigh? That's an excellent question. I get asked that one a lot. I'm going to say that this friend is between 50 and 60 pounds right now. But like I said, they can grow to be about 200 pounds or more. They can grow to be very large snakes. I'm going to say that the one back at the Imaginarium is for sure over 100 pounds. It's a very large snake. Yeah, do you have a question? Can any snake swim? You know, some snakes are able to go in the water, but this friend is only going to be on land. Yeah.
How long is that?
How what?
How long is it?
How long is this friend? You know what? I actually don't know. We have not measured this friend in a while. And since I started at the Imaginarium about 6 months ago, this one has definitely gotten longer and thicker around. So we will have to remeasure them.
How long is the Burmese python?
Yeah, they can live or they can grow to be about 20 feet long. So they can grow to be a very long snake. Yeah.
How do you measure them?
We would have to try to straighten them out and then do our best to measure. Yeah. Yeah. This one is actually going to move a little bit slower, and it's a little bit heavier. It could move faster if it wanted to, but actually when this one slithers, it's so muscular that it doesn't slither in an S shape. It's actually able to push itself along in a straight line. So it'll push itself along, but it's a little bit slower. Yeah. It's okay. Great, I'll take 2 more questions from you two, and then we'll...
It could be called the cheese snake because it has white and yellow like cheese.
It does kind of look like the colors of cheese.
It's really fat, and how long does it get? It's really fat, and I know something about snakes. They start from big, from their head, and all the way down to the tail. They get smaller.
Yeah, they do. So their body kind of tapers off, but this one isn't so much fat as it is super muscular. So along its body, it's got all of these bones and muscles.
How does that one? It's not easy, so they want them to go. If they can stick their tongue out so they don't hurt them and try to scare them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes because their head's not too low, so they want them to go away.
He's smelling. All right, do you have a question?
How long are they when they're little?
When they're little, you know, I actually don't know the size they are when they actually hatch out of their eggs, but I would imagine that they would be pretty small. I don't think they would be in this large of an egg. But that's a good question. I will have to look into that. I'm not totally sure. All right, I am going to bring this friend back over here, and I have all 5 of my friends up here, so we've got about 15 minutes until the next show. So if you would like to come up and see any of our animals or pet them, you can certainly come up. And thank you for having me.